Hello, welcome. Hey, this is all new. I am so excited you're joining me. We're gonna cook live, and you're just gonna have to hang out with me. I'm not using really the magic of TV. I'm going to, really just do this with you. And we are going to make some cannabis infused gummy bears. And, I've got a set here that you'll be able to see everything on the table. And, I'll try to check the chat and see who's here. In fact, I might just check that right now. Hello, Marla. I see John, Drew, Joe, Dean, Alan. Alan, Huss, I know you. Hi, Jimmy, Mike. Hey, everybody, jump in here. Join the fun. Let me show you what you're going to be able to see here. So I've got a table set up with all sorts of things, and we'll get into the recipe. Now, the recipe that I'm starting with is a really basic, fundamental one. And the ingredient that we're going to talk about first is using an infused cannabis oil that a lot of people have readily available, which is usually, people make it in a coconut oil or a butter. They call it Canna oil or Canna butter. So that's what we're going to do today on the basic recipe. And all the recipes are going to be published, and the first one is already published. It's on our website, and it's thecannabiscommunity.org under blogs and recipes, and we will drop that link out there eventually for you and share that around. And it is in the event page. We did include the recipe in the comment section, the discussion. But we will certainly be, sharing that around. And I'm going to go through really step by step in these recipes that we'll be publishing, so that for each variation, you'll have the step-by-step instructions. So today we'll talk a lot about just using canna butter or cannabis oil and the difference that the texture will be for your infused gummy. And then I'll actually be going into using RSO and FICO, doing these so that we can add a preservative so that they'll be shelf stable, and you won't have to worry about keeping them in the refrigerator. Adding lecithin, learning about all the different ingredient components that we can add. But let's start out with something easy where you might have the ingredients available, and I am adding the links to some of my favorite products. A lot of them you'll see actually right here, when I've actually got them, or I've given you links so that you can find something similar for where you are. So let's see, I see Lynn, hello, and Mary, and Lori, and Wes, and Kelly, Donna, hello. I'll try to do my best here. If you have questions, you can try to throw them in there. And I will see, let me know if you've got any problems with hearing or anything with the broadcast. I'll do my best with that. And I am going to switch over to the full table here so that you can see everything I've got laid out. And yeah, I think that's a good view. All right. Let's go through some of these ingredients. Again, this recipe is on our website. It's thecannabiscommunity.org under recipes and the blog, and you'll be able to find that, and I will help share that later. So as I've got it written, this is the basic one. It's called with corn syrup because that's how a lot of people search online, and this will help you to understand. This is just a really basic one. I'll actually be creating and writing up some new recipes in the future that'll be all natural too. So let's go through what we are going to be using as our ingredients today. So our main ingredient to get these gummies to be gummy and chewy is the gelatin, and unflavored Knox gelatin, as you see, is a very simple product you can find. You'll find the small boxes just about any grocery store. I order mine bulk on Amazon, and the link will be in my blog recipe for you. You know, I save so much money getting them this way. It's not that I make thousands and thousands of gummy bears. These happen to be one of my favorite ways to use cannabis oil for medicine for myself, and it saves so much money to make your own. But the Knox unflavored gelatin, and you can also find vegan options out there. So that's one of our main ingredients. I'll take my unopened can, put that away. And I think you're all pretty familiar with the Jello. So we are just using these small boxes. So they're called the 3 ounce. They're the small box, and that's all you need for one batch. Okay, and you just choose any flavor you want. Again, I love buying bulk. It's a lot cheaper. For me at a restaurant supply store, I can get a bag like this, and I've written the directions for you so that you know that it is a half a cup of bulk, or you can just use one small box into this recipe. And you know, this is under $5 at a restaurant supply store, and this is $1.25 over at Walmart. So yeah, I like to save money and stock up, and it's great in the winter because then I always know I have my ingredients to go throw a batch of gummies together. So that's that. And you know, I'm gonna move these. I am gonna do orange today. We also use corn syrup in this recipe, and the corn syrup really helps give it that chewiness. And you can replace the corn syrup with honey as well. No problem doing that. I did not write that in this basic recipe. I will be going on and teaching about doing some natural gummies later. But either will work. There's also other substitutes out there, like brown rice syrup is another one, which is a corn syrup alternative. Let's see, this is probably the one thing that you may not find local. And I do order mine on Amazon, and I use a liquid lecithin. You can get a powder lecithin. Use the same amount, it doesn't matter. And I prefer sunflower. There is also, I think it's soy lecithin is the other product that you've probably heard a lot about. Some people have issues with soy. I just prefer myself to use the liquid, and this helps to emulsify and keep your oil mixed with water, because we know oil and water don't mix, right? So to help that stay emulsified and mixed, and also help your body absorb the cannabinoids, it is a fat. So, and with this oil and mixed together, it can, they talk about absorption, and since this is a digestion that we're doing with, eating edibles, it can't hurt. So that's another. Some people use lecithin when they're actually creating their infused oils. They're actually adding it in. But I like to add it. It helps mix it through your recipe, through your gummy bear recipe. Little bit of a spray. I usually have a coconut around. This is just an inexpensive canola spray, because it's good if you have a brand new mold to give it a spritz, and sometimes even the bears that we can talk about. And we've got the actual cannabis oil. Now I keep mine in the freezer, so these are pretty rock hard. And I always try to tell people that if you've never done this before and you're new to candy making, don't use your cannabis that you want, that you're afraid that maybe it won't work, you don't want to waste it. Just make a virgin batch. Just make it with plain old plain old coconut oil. here's mine, and that's what we're going to do today. We're just going to scoop that out and use this to try the recipe. And anytime you want to try and experiment with anything, yeah, just don't use the actual cannabis so that you don't fear wasting it. And I saw, let's see, I saw AJ on here. This was a gift from AJ that he shipped me. I saw him on here. And so, AJ, thank you. These will be getting used too. So, I just thought I'd mention that. Let me move these out of our way. And I want to get some of these ingredients moving along here. So, and you might notice that this is my mold too. I'm not using a gummy bear mold, and we'll talk about that in a moment. All right, I am going to add I already have measured out a half a cup of water. And, you know, these glass measuring cups are for liquid. And when you're doing dry ingredients, that's when you want to use the cups. But you can get the most accurate measurement by using the water, and then you bend down and look to measure to see if you've got the correct amount. So I've got a half a cup of water here, and I'm going to put that in my pan over here. I set up a little mini kitchen within my kitchen. Oh, we didn't talk about the flavors yet. Good. I'll give me something to discuss with you. I'm going to move this over a bit, make sure that you can see it well. All right. Not my normal stove, so we'll see how I do on this. That's why I didn't want to waste any real cannabis today, since I'm using, you know, this is a little bit different than behind me on my stove in the kitchen. So, something you do with unflavored gelatin is you add it to your water and you let it bloom. That's what they call it. And it's just sort of dissolving it. And you'll see as it happens. So I need 2 envelopes of Knox unflavored gelatin, or you can use 2 tablespoons of bulk. So we are going to do the bulk. I'm just sprinkling it over the water in my pan. And we're going to let that sit and do its bloom. Put this out of my way. Okay. All right. And it, you know, a few minutes you can just let that sit. I do like to use a nice metal whisk as well in my pan when I'm making this. The other thing I'm going to do right away while we're waiting for that is to get my cannabis oil melting with the lecithin. Now, this is something you might recognize as a mug warmer or a candle warmer. These were really popular in like the 90s with your candles. You would put your scented Yankee candles on it and let them melt so that you could smell it and not burn and have an open flame. Then they came out with all these tart warmers, I guess. And the old mug warmer thing, I don't think it ever worked, but it was a fun gift at Christmas. I think we all bought our dads probably when we were kids. So they were great. Pick them up. I've got a link for you on the website to find them on Amazon. They're really inexpensive. You know where I find them? Thrift stores. They're a great little thing that you can pick up really cheap, and it seems like I never fail. I can find them at thrift stores. So I have a couple of them hanging around. Just use some type of a metal bowl or glass so that you can put it on there. And I am going to go ahead and scoop out my oil and melt it in there. And again, we're making a virgin batch today, which just means I don't have any actual cannabis infused in my oil. And yes, of course, we can do a how to make your own cannabis oil. So this is a 1/4 cup, and I have coconut oil today. You can do Canna butter, I'm told, and I gotta be honest, I've never tried it in my gummies. I personally don't use canna butter for anything. I'm pretty much just a medicinal, edible, kind of like just take my medicine and get it over kind of kid. So I love to infuse, I love to create recipes and make things, but I like to do it for other people as much. I'm very sensitive to edibles, so I'm really not somebody who's going to make a whole lot of foods for my family. So let's move this. See how big of a mess I can make here. So that's melting away here. Give it a little stir, break it up. This has 2 heat settings on my little warmer. And yes, you can do things in the microwave, but you know, guys, I don't know about microwave, what it's going to do to cannabis. You know, there's a lot of science out there that talks about those microwaves going through our foods. Does it reduce the density of our vitamins, the minerals in it? I don't want to destroy any of my cannabinoids, so I just do it the good old-fashioned way and I heat things up. It's just my preference on that. Now we're going to add the lecithin, whether you're using powder or liquid, right to this, and I'm going to get it all nice and stirred up and dissolved before we go any farther. I'm going to move our mold out of the way. And we need 1 teaspoon of that lecithin, and I've seen all different recipes and amounts to use, and really you can, if you use more, I use a 1/4 cup. That's always been my limit on taste, you know, wanting my gummies to actually taste good. So when I'm using cannabis, an oil like this, I tend to only use the least amount. You know, they're not very strong, but hey, you can enjoy eating more of them then. And you can see this melts right in. I don't use cannabis oil when I'm making my gummies anymore. I just want you to understand that you can use just about anything you have in the house. There's just a few different methods to it. What I use now is something called FICO or RSO, that full extract cannabis oil, because I can make them stronger that way, and I can also make them more like the consistency of a store-bought. You're going to notice when adding oil or butters, you're going to get a little bit of a cloudy, not quite as chewy as maybe you're used to. So that's why I know once you improve your methods, you change up. So that's that. And you just want to get that lecithin mixed in well, and it looks like it did a nice job. That's all dissolved. I can turn my little burner off. Slide that back a little. It's, you know, I'm so used to just doing this, and having to write it out for people with steps was really interesting, having to do that. It's really such a forgiving recipe too. So what have I got here for you to do? All right, we'll just keep going with our ingredients. You know, once you get used to making these, you'll get your own system down too. Just don't be afraid to experiment at all. So we've got our Jello that sat in the water over here and bloomed. That was the unflavored. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this burner on now. Now this is not my normal stove, of course, so we'll see. I'm going to have to, you know, fuss a little bit with the temperatures. You don't need to boil this, and that's not something you'd want to do. go ahead and add the 1 box. So these are just the 3-ounce boxes. And again, if you were using bulk like I normally do, it would be a 1/2 cup. So let me sprinkle this through. And then I'll give this a stir. A lot of people say don't use a wire whisk, but you know what? To incorporate that cannabis oil in with a, oil and water base, I think it's worth it. Bubbles or not. So, all right. We're going to let that sit and start to warm up. And I am going to take a real quick break. I will be right back, okay? All right, I am back. Sorry about that. Thank you. At least I can step away a little bit. So, hey, this is the first time we've done this, and I'm trying to learn how to do it all. Thank you. So, right now we've got our Jellos both sitting in this pan. We're going to start heating them up. This is not my normal stove, so we're going to have to play around a little bit with, the temperatures. So bear with me on that. Just want to get that all nice and dissolved. One thing we didn't talk about yet that is in the recipe was extra flavoring that I like to add to give these, a nice kick of fruit and also cover up some of that cannabis flavor sometimes, especially if I'm using an RSO or a FICO in it. Or even, depending on what kind of base you're using for your oil, you've got to be careful because those flavors can carry over. So if you've made an infused coconut oil, if you've ever seen, there's so many options out there. So consider if it says refined or not, or underfined. Underfined is going to actually have the taste and flavor of coconuts. But if you use refined, and yes, it goes through an extra process, so it does lose maybe some nutritional value. But if you don't want to taste coconut in your foods, your baked goods, or your gummies, then you want refined. You'll be much happier. I got to be careful with this new burner. I'm not sure what our temperatures are here. Just lift it up once in a while. Got it on low. But regardless of what I use, I like to add extra flavoring. And this is called Loran brand. They are extra strength candy flavorings. Definite something that you will learn about if you are making hard candy. This is like the secret ingredient. They have so many flavors. And you can, I've seen them at Walmart, even in the candy making section, the cake, where everything like Wilton products would be. Most of them have it. I've seen them at Joann Fabric, if you have one of those, or a Hobby Lobby or a Michael's that sells anything with cake decorating. They would also have the, some of the flavorings, but just limited. Go on the website though, go on to Amazon as well, and I've given the links in the blog article, and you'll be able to find how to order them, and you can get multiples, so it's a little bit cheaper. So I will be using orange to go with mine today. And another option I'll be talking about eventually in an upcoming article is making them all natural. And Young Living is my favorite for food grade oils. So that's something that I usually do. But I've always been taught just to throw the whole, this is called a dram, and that's the measurement, how it's called. I just throw the whole thing in there. And so some recipes I've seen people are using half or dropping or counting. With this, I just throw it all in. And when I'm using the natural oils though, then I do only count 10 to 15 drops out for a recipe. So we'll move those over. Okay. All right. What have we got next on our list? We're just going to add in the rest of the ingredients and stir until we are very happy that that is incorporated well. So I had to remove mine off the burner because this tends to get a bit hotter than mine does. Let's add our sweetener in there. Today we will use the corn syrup, and you've got to use something sticky like corn syrup or honey if you want the chew. So that's why we've got that in there. And our amount, that I don't have memorized. So our corn syrup, we just need 2 tablespoons. So you can do either corn syrup or honey. And we'll throw that in there. And I've never had a problem with this recipe and being real exact. I mean, it seems so forgiving. That's our flavoring. Let's get this out of the way so I don't spill it. Okay. And I do also love silicone scrapers. They're awesome if you're going to be working with candy, cannabis. Get yourself some of those. And this is a nice silicone mat that I'm working on. This is a KitchenAid one. I've had it for so many years. I have 2 of them actually. And yeah, they sell some really cool cannabis themed mats. Magic butter machine, I think we've probably, if you've had one of those come with a small one. But I really like the large ones, and I use them for rolling out a lot of doughs and such. But if you're making candies or gummies, hard candy too, I've actually poured it on the entire mat and cut my hard candy with that mat right on there, instead of using molds. And I have a huge cutter, and I would just rock it back and forth and cut them into small squares. So, hi Sylvia. Hey Phyllis. I see Phyllis. Kelly, how are you? Michelle, you are here. I see Michelle, Melissa, Julie, Doc Boss, Tracy, Bradley, hello and welcome, and thanks for joining me. If any questions, try to drop them in. I am trying to take a peek at the chat at the same time. We are going to add our cannabis oil that has already been dissolved and mixed with the lecithin in there. The lecithin, again, is a binder. It's going to help emulsify and really try to keep the water and the oil mixed. But just remember, you know, these are homemade, so there's no way you're gonna be able to pour them out and make sure you get the exact same amount in each little cavity. So your dosing is always going to be a little bit off, and one bear can always have more than the other, or square, whatever you're using. We're going to be doing squares today, not bears. I don't use the bears anymore. Once I found other molds that are out there, I really fear people inadvertently grabbing what looks like candy to them, and gummies are really popular in my house. We all love, gummy bears. But nobody else in my home wants cannabis in theirs. And I don't want anybody getting sick. So I label them well. And I don't use the bear shape anymore. I really prefer just to use the squares. So all I've done is gotten it nice and dissolved. It is hot, but it is not boiling. Turn that one off. I'm going to throw in our flavoring. And just stir, stir, stir. Like I said, I have used in this recipe, I wrote it out so that we're using a 1/4 cup of infused cannabis oil. I have seen recipes out there and people do it with 1/2 cup. I would use double the amount of lecithin if you wanted to do that. I don't care for the flavor. I would rather use less and eat more and enjoy it. And we're not doing sour gummies or anything today. I'm going to have to do that in a future one, and we'll improve on this. This is your basic fundamental, how to do it, how it looks. If you've never done it before, this is an easy way to start. It's just using some cannabis oil that's been homemade. You can also use store-bought. You can use CBD. What's wrong with a CBD bottle? You just want to make sure that the oil base that they've used in it doesn't have hemp seed oil, which is really a strong flavor. So MCT oil is a liquid coconut oil. That's a carrier that is often used in products. So you can purchase some CBD oil, and maybe we'll work with a sponsor and get that sometime. So that's definitely something you can do. You can throw that in there too, measure it out. It doesn't have to be a 1/4 cup. When I start using the RSO and FICO, I use only about 1/8 of a cup of a carrier, and I use a vegetable glycerin for that because it's sweet. So this looks really good. Haven't needed to use the whisk anymore, and the whisk can cause a lot of bubbles. But depending on what you're mixing in there for an oil, you need it sometimes. So I'm going to get a sip of water. Okay. Well, you ready to fill some molds? All right, let's move this. A tray. Important part of this, believe it or not. These molds aren't going to go anywhere. They're just too floppy. So I always get a tray and I use those first. You can see I've sort of, I don't know, maybe you can't see, I have counted out where I got to 99 blocks on mine, and just kind of helps so you can figure out your dosage later. So no matter what silicone molds you are using, put them on a tray. I get these trays at my dollar store. There's a lot of things I get at the dollar store that I use to cook with, or even just with cannabis in general. And this will help you so that you can carry it, because otherwise you're going to end up with a floppy thing. It's not going to work. So, all right, we're going to go full screen so you can see exactly what I'm doing. There, let's get our table. All right, now this is another favorite item I've got. This is a silicone. It's rubber. It comes all apart for easy cleaning. Every piece of it will come off. And the gummy product will, you know, the Jello stuff will wash right out. It pours out easy. This is wonderful. I got mine at Walmart. I did find some on Amazon, and I wrote that up on the blog, so, or over at Amazon. So this is my Wilton one though. I got it local at Walmart. I'm gonna make sure that's off. All right. It usually makes a mess when I first, you get to laugh at me while I make a mess too. So, all right, it's really hot right now. Way a little. So you want to make sure it's not too hot that you can't hold on to it. I have had to let it sit a little bit and cool. Can't cool too much, or you're gonna have too much. It'll be too thick to come out. But right now it is very thin. And what happens is when I go to tip for the first time, for the first few, it kind of goes boom, and it goes everywhere, and I make a mess. So we'll see if I do today. And that's the fun of this. Just make a mess, have fun. Careful how much you lick. Especially if it's infused, right? All right. We'll see how I do. Sometimes I kind of bring the thing up to me. There we go. So there are droppers. A lot of times droppers will come with a kit. And, I probably used a dropper for a couple of years until I looked for a better method. Because it really wasn't suiting my needs. And it took a lot longer. And if you need to make a couple of batches, this is a lot easier. I still make a little bit of a mess, but not too bad. And when these are set, I usually put them right in the refrigerator, or I go straight to the freezer. And really, it's only about, I don't know, maybe an hour or so. If I've popped them in the freezer or fridge so that they can pop out again. I own enough molds now where I'm not in a hurry to, but sometimes you're trying to make a few batches and you're trying to get them out as quick as you can. Gives you a little bit of time to do your dishes in between. I'm usually right down in this with my face, so I'm not doing a very nice job today. I would caution using one of those mustard or ketchup condiment bottles, that you've seen, like these squirt bottles, because this is silicone, and those are kind of like a flexible plastic, but they're not really rubber. And I don't know what the heat would do to that, but as long as it's not too hot, I guess it would work. If you try it, let me know, or if you have tried it, let me know. What's your favorite flavors? I always tend to just make the fruits, as in just like the citrus, because I don't know. I try to do a lot of natural and healthy foods, so just doing blues and reds for me just doesn't do anything for me. So I always try to stay with a little bit neutral. But in the future, I will be writing up how we can make them all natural with none of the artificial colors, not using box jello. But hey, this is something that most of us can do with local products or things you've already even got in the cupboard. So that's that. And then this easily washes out. So these are just going to sit till they're firm enough for me to feel comfortable in putting them in the refrigerator. So, oh well, hey, we did it. We got this made, and I hope that helped you out a little if you've never gotten to see it done. I think that was one of the hardest things that I did when I was learning was cannabis was all new, and then trying to just read everything. I mean, there's so much on YouTube now. I do know that. But years ago, and it was a little bit harder for a lot of us, but to see something done, I'm one of those people that loves to learn by viewing and watching a visual. So I hope that helped you out. Okay. Oh, now I'm seeing some questions that didn't keep following up. Let's see. Simon's Cure was asking regarding cannabis oil, are we talking about ISO or BHO or infused with Canna, and the latter, how much Canna? So today I wanted everybody to understand how they could just use an infused oil that maybe they made at home using MCT, coconut oil, or just butter. Good old basic, no extraction methods in there. It's infusing, where I personally I use extracts now, or concentrates. So I will use the actual RSO, but I make it with Everclear, and then I, reduce it, and that's something for another discussion, another day. So yeah, and we've got the recipe is all printed. It's on our or published on our website. So that's the cannabiscommunity.org, so that you can see that. And I'll keep putting recipes up every time I do one or do an event here. I'll put the recipe over there, but I'm also going to put a whole bunch of different gummy bear recipes up, because we want to be able to do the ones with the citric acid and make them the sour gummies. And I wanted you to start and see with a basic one, because if somebody's new to cooking in general, let's just start with the basics, start with something simple, and products that you have at home. So we'll look into using RSO and FICO, those alcohol-based safe things that you'd be using at home, store-bought things that you can buy at your dispensary, or maybe using other cannabinoids. Don't forget, this doesn't have to be a THC dominant, edible. So, medicated glycerin, Michelle is asking. So I use, where you saw me today using a quarter cup of oil that was infused, that I added with lecithin to emulsify it and added it in here. When I use an RSO or a FICO, I actually use about an 1/8 cup or less of glycerin, vegetable glycerin, food grade, and I add my concentrate to that and the lecithin. And that is my like carrier for the concentrate. And if you've already got medicated glycerin as the base, you would just add the amount that you want. I mean, it sounds like that might be something that was purchased. So if it has milligrams already there, you can kind of decide in your own mind how much you would like to add or not. It's a very forgiving recipe. You can add a little or a lot. It's still going to work. And we'll be putting, I'll share in the future some more recipes on that. But definitely you can just add the glycerin instead of the oil if it was already purchased that way. So I'm not sure if that's what you were thinking, Michelle. I hope that helps. And AJ says he uses a lightly sprayed Pyrex, like this is a Pyrex cup, so he sprays it with an oil, one of those cooking sprays, and pours it out that way. Perfectly fine. I just use my fancy little silicone. So great. Perfect. Okay. There is one step that I usually don't take and I've never had a problem, and that's air drying your gummies. Now, this batch, like again, this was just a basic fundamental starter. If you've never cooked before, you've never infused before, this was a real easy one for you to do. I didn't add any preservatives, so these would have to be refrigerated or kept in the freezer. And even in the refrigerator, it could mold after, a week or two. There's no telling. So in the future, I got to show you, we'll get those recipes up as fast as I can and share them out to you, how to use a mold inhibitor. And so you'll have shelf stable gummies that you don't have to worry about. And air drying, though, is something that you can do to help. It improves the texture of your food, of your gummy. And it's literally just as it sounds. You're just going to lay it out. I use a rack, like a cookie rack. Put them out there, cover them with a lint-free cloth. I have like what I call flour sacks. I cover that, and you can let them sit for 24 hours, 72 hours. And that helps relieve, take some of that moisture away, gives it a chewier texture. The more moisture you're removing, the less chance of the mold happening as soon. But still, no preservatives in this one. Just, you want to keep it in the refrigerator. And cannabinoids degrade over time. So they're going to degrade whether it's in food or whether it's the actual plant. And it just means it's going to change, but we may lose some potency. And it's heat and light and time that degrade cannabinoids. So if you do any of those opposite things, eat it fast, consume it faster, keep it cold versus warm, and keep it away from heat and, keep it away from light, you will extend the shelf life. And that goes for any kind of form, whether we're talking about flour or whether we're talking about a food that you made. So just do the opposite of what degrades or, changes and lessens the strength of cannabinoids if you want to try to keep it as strong as you made it the first time, and make things last longer. And I will show you how I like to package mine up, even for home. This is just in my own home. I don't want anyone to inadvertently grab these and think they're candy. So I always put a medical label on there. Okay, and then I really like, it's so simple these days. You can print your own labels. So I have a label that I make. It says keep away from children. I like to put a serving size because I do share with friends and family. And I want them to be aware if this is something new for them. And if they're used to gummies not being in the fridge, I tell them, keep it cold or freeze it. And then I write it on there. And they have black ones, and I just get them on Amazon, small amounts. And so if you wanted to keep them, literally away from any light. But you know, Ziploc bags work fine in the freezer, bulk. But it is nice if you want to feel very accomplished over what you've just done. So, awesome. Just peeking in to see Monica and Mike and Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. And come back. I am going to do this every Thursday. At this point, it'll be every Thursday at noon. If I find out this is a really bad time, I should say noon Eastern, because I know I have people watching from all over. But you know, that's the test time. I would like to come and do a live at least every Thursday, noon Eastern. And we'll make other kinds of recipes. I want to hear from you. Tell me what you want to do. I also love to craft. I call it like my 420 crafts. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's cannabis themed, but hey, don't you get creative sometimes if you're medicated or on 420? So those are some things I would love to do. I make herbal bags for a lot of for pain issues and stuff, and maybe we can go over how to make those. And got some little tie-dye hippie gnomes I've been working on. So you know, not just food, but we can work on these things too. Yeah, Melissa, I know I missed the OCM meeting, but we have been working so hard. I'm in New York State, by the way, for anybody watching from elsewhere. And I've worked on legislation as a patient advocate for years. It's tiring, and I think we all deserve some fun. So I really this is something I've always wanted to do, is, you know, come on live, share what I know with you, and hey, we can learn from each other and just continue. And if you're new to the cannabis community, check us out. And there's not a whole lot. Let's see. Let me see if I can. This is new. Let me try to do this. I am gonna switch over and see if I can show you our website. Okay. Now, one way that you can support what I'm doing and you can support us at the community is to check out our store on the cannabis community. We've got all sorts of merchandise, which is really fun, and it's in-house designed, and we've got all sorts of designs that you can pick and products. And there's going to be an apron. I have to get my own apron made. I don't know if I can find it on here, but check it out. We've got 710 things loaded up even. So very fun. There we go. I think you're back to me now. So check that out. See what we've got. It's a great way. You know, I really appreciate any support. We also have a Patreon page. If you're not familiar with Patreon, it's a way to support creators. You can do monthly subscriptions, and they start really, you know, really low. So, and if I get enough people, I can actually give you exclusive lives over on Patreon even, you know, or one-on-ones where we can all just sit and talk, you know. But it's, you know, we'll drop that link around too. I think I did put it in the description for this, but Facebook is not cannabis friendly, so you can't support me through the subscriptions and the creator way that, you know, so we have to find some interesting original ways to do that. So but check out our store. Definitely go to the website, cannabiscommunity.org, thecannabiscommunity.org, because you're going to find the blog section and the articles, and that's where I'll be compiling those recipes for you. Hopefully when I get done, I'll be putting out some recipe books. So, all right. I am going to let you folks go. Thank you so much. Oh, Linda already is asking. Linda, are you selling a cookbook? It will be out, and, you know, some of them will just be some instant downloads of just the PDFs so that you can just have these in one spot. You know, no money involved, but then hopefully, yes, I would love to publish in actual, you know, cookbooks or in segments, you know, and get your support that way as well. So, all right, you have a wonderful day, and thank you. Hey, I can't wait to go see what this looks like, and it can only get better, right? So, all right, stay well, stay lifted, and I will see you next Thursday, 12 Eastern.